Ever wondered who will truly be there for you in your golden years when family can't always be around? Imagine being over 60 and realizing that your children are busy with their own lives. Your siblings are aging too, and you might not want to burden them with every little need. It's a question many of us quietly ask ourselves. Who can I count on now? I asked myself that very question on my 60th birthday. I remember blowing out the candles on a small cake at home, with my wife smiling by my side, and the phone was quiet. The kids had called earlier, but they were far away, living their own busy lives. That night I felt a strange mix of gratitude and loneliness. Is family the only support we have, or are there others out there who can step in when family can't? Not so long ago, it was common for extended families to live in the same town, sometimes even under one roof. But nowadays, families are often spread across the country or even across the globe. We cherish that independence and mobility, but it also means we may find ourselves without relatives nearby. No wonder so many of us are seeking new connections. I later learned that I wasn't alone in feeling this way. It turns out many people in their 60s, 70s, and beyond experience that sense of isolation once life quiets down. I recall reading a survey from a senior advocacy group that said roughly 1 in 3 older adults feels lonely on a regular basis. Imagine that, a third of us. That number stunned me at first, but it also made me feel less alone. It wasn't just me. Millions were in the same boat, wondering who they could turn to. But that realization came with a hopeful question. If so many of us are seeking connection, what if we could find each other? If family isn't always around, maybe we can create a sort of extended family among friends and neighbors. I began to see that my world didn't have to shrink. It could actually grow in new and unexpected ways. In this journey of aging, I've discovered something wonderful. There are 5 incredible networks of people that can change your life after 60. These networks can sometimes be more reliable than family, not because family doesn't love us, but because these other connections can be there in ways our family members often cannot. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to share heartwarming stories and lessons about each of these 5 networks. You might be surprised by some of them, and perhaps you'll see a bit of your own story in mine. So get comfortable, my friend. Let's explore these life-changing connections together. 1. Friends, the family you choose. Let me start with a simple truth. Friends are the family we choose for ourselves. Do you have a friend who feels more like a brother or sister than just a friend? I hope you do. I'd like to tell you about my dear friend Walter. We met in our 20s at our first jobs, and over the decades, life pulled us in different directions, different cities, different careers, raising children. We kept in touch off and on, a call here, a holiday card there. Then, as fate would have it, we both ended up retiring in the same small town, purely by coincidence. In my early 60s, not long after I moved to that town, I went through a tough time. My health gave me a scare, a mild heart issue that landed me in the hospital for a couple of days. My wife was panicked and our children couldn't fly in immediately. Guess who showed up at the hospital, unasked, the very next morning? Walter. He heard through an old colleague that I was admitted, and he came straight over, holding a thermos of my favorite coffee. He sat with me all day, cracked jokes about the hospital food, and even spoke with the doctor to make sure he understood everything so he could explain it to me later. When I was discharged, Walter drove us home and stocked our fridge with groceries. At that moment, it struck me deeply. A true friend can be as caring and dependable as any family member, sometimes more. Walter had no obligation to help me. He did it out of genuine care. Over the following months, as I recovered, we fell into a routine. Every Wednesday, Walter would pick me up and we'd go to the park for a walk. 2 old guys feeding the ducks and reminiscing about the old days. You might have seen a pair like us somewhere and smiled. Those walks not only helped my heart recover, they lifted my spirits in a way that medicine alone couldn't. Have you ever had a friend come through for you unexpectedly just because they cared? Those moments stay with you. They remind us that while we can't choose our blood relatives, we can choose friends who truly enrich our lives. In our 60s and beyond, friends sometimes step up when family is unable to. Children might be tied up with jobs and grandkids, but a friend who is walking the same stage of life as you understands what you're going through right now. Friends share your history, your humor, your heartaches, often in a way your kids or younger family simply can't fully grasp. One of the greatest joys of getting older has been rekindling old friendships and nurturing new ones. If you have even one good friend you can call when you're feeling down or need a hand, count yourself lucky. And if you don't, it's never too late to make new friends. I've seen men and women in their 70s form friendships that are as strong as any from youth. I met a gentleman at a community art class once. He was 72 and had recently moved to the area after his wife passed away. He barely knew anyone, but over the 6-week painting course, we all became friends. We'd chat during class, compliment each other's work, even when it was more abstract than intended, and eventually started meeting for coffee after sessions. By the end of that class, this man had a whole group of new pals. We were no replacement for his late wife, of course, but we became a support system for him and he for us. Friends bring laughter, comfort, and understanding. They might help you with practical things like giving you a ride to the doctor, fixing a leaky faucet together, or simply sharing a meal when you both don't want to eat alone. Equally important, they give emotional support. Walter and I talk about everything under the sun, from the silly TV shows we secretly love, to the fears about getting older that we don't voice to our kids. With a friend, you don't have to put on a brave face. You can admit you're scared or that you need help, and know it won't change how they see you. Isn't that a wonderful feeling? So if you find yourself relying solely on family and feeling a bit lonely, look to your friends or consider making a new one. Join that local club, say hello to the familiar face at the coffee shop, or reach out to an old buddy you haven't spoken to in years. You might be surprised how eager people are to connect, especially at this stage of life. After all, they're likely feeling the same need for friendship that you are. Some of my closest friends now are folks I've met in recent years. For example, I have a friend named David who is about 15 years younger than me. We met at the dog park of all places. I was there with my old beagle and he had a playful young Labrador. We started chatting as our dogs bounded around. What began as small talk about our pets and the weather turned into longer conversations each week. Over time, David became like the son I never had. He checks in on me regularly and helps me out if I need a hand with something heavy or a bit of tech trouble, and I share my life experiences and a bit of advice with him when he asks, and sometimes even when he doesn't. We learn from each other. I've taught him a few of my old grilling recipes and even some guitar chords, and he's taught me about new music and helps keep me feeling young at heart. It's a wonderful friendship that bridges our age gap and proves that friendship truly has no age limit. For good measure, even science backs this up. Studies show that people with strong friendships tend to live longer and stay healthier. That makes sense to me. Laughter and companionship are like tonic for the heart and soul. Life is just richer with friends. They color our days with kindness and humor. So cherish your friendships, old and new. They are one of the most reliable joys in life after 60, and often they become a chosen family that stands by you through thick and thin. Two neighbors and community right next door. Sometimes support comes from just a few steps away, literally from your own neighborhood. Have you ever considered how well you know your neighbors? When we're younger, caught up in careers and raising kids, neighbors can be just the people next door. We'd give a friendly wave or borrow some sugar, sure, but we often didn't invest deeply in those relationships. After 60, many of us slow down and spend more time at home, which opens up a chance to truly connect with the community right around us. I learned the value of neighbors one winter morning a few years ago. There was an unexpected heavy snowfall overnight. I woke up to a silent world blanketed in white. The morning light glowed off the drifts, and the air was so icy I could see my breath fogging the window pane as I peered outside. I realized I couldn't possibly shovel the driveway on my own, not with my heart condition acting up in that much snow. My wife and I stood at the window debating what to do. I'll admit, my heart sank a bit thinking about it. I hated the idea of bothering my son. He lives 2 hours away and it was a work day for him. We decided to take it slow and do a little at a time. Well, as I was bundling up, I heard the sound of a shovel scraping outside. When I opened the door, there he was, my 45-year-old neighbor, Sam, already clearing my driveway one scoop at a time. He was bundled in a thick coat and wool cap, his cheeks red from the cold. With each shovel of snow he tossed aside, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. I hurried outside, telling Sam he didn't have to do that for me. Do you know what he said? He smiled and said, "I figured you might need a hand." I remember my own dad finding it tough to shovel in winter. I was utterly humbled and thanked him profusely. Sam wouldn't take any payment or grand thanks, he just waved it off. Later, my wife baked him and his family some cookies as a thank you, and we ended up chatting over a cup of hot chocolate when we delivered them. That snowy morning turned into an unexpected bonding moment. Over time, that relationship grew. Now Sam checks in on us if he hasn't seen me or my wife outside in a couple of days. And I've helped him out too. I watch their cat when his family is away, and I gave his teenage daughter some beginner guitar lessons. I used to play a lot in my youth. Neighbors can become a kind of extended family, the kind you see regularly simply because of proximity. They don't replace your relatives, but in day-to-day life, having a friendly face next door is invaluable. Whether it's collecting your mail when you're on vacation, bringing soup over when you're under the weather, or just stopping for a chat during an evening walk, neighbors add a sense of safety and belonging to your life. Another story comes to mind. An elderly widow named Carol lived across the street from us when I was growing up. Back then, my mother would send me over to help Carol with small chores, like taking out her garbage or picking up groceries. And in return, she'd tell me wonderful stories about the old days and sneak me a candy or two. She had no children nearby, and we sort of adopted her as an honorary grandmother. Now fast forward 50 years, I find myself on the receiving end of neighborly help, and it's humbling. It's also heartwarming to see a natural circle of community support come around. Have you experienced something like this in your neighborhood? Sometimes it starts with a simple hello or a small favor. If you haven't gotten to know your neighbors yet, it's not too late. I know it can feel a little awkward to knock on someone's door after living near them for years, but you can start small. Perhaps you have a garden and could share extra tomatoes, or you can compliment them on their roses when you see them outside. These little interactions plant the seed of a relationship. I met one of my closest neighborhood friends, Linda, because I complimented her on the beautiful sunflowers in her front yard one summer day. That one comment sparked a conversation about gardening. Soon, we were swapping plant cuttings and gardening tips every week. When my wife had knee surgery, Linda showed up at our door with a full dinner for us. She said she figured we could use a home-cooked meal while my wife was recovering. I nearly cried at her kindness, and I'll never forget that meal: meatloaf and mashed potatoes. And yes, it was delicious. Our local community, whether it's a neighborhood, an apartment building, or a retirement village, can be a daily source of support. In some cultures or small towns, folks naturally know all their neighbors and look out for each other. In other places, people may live years without more than a nodding acquaintance. I encourage you to break that ice if it exists. Your neighbors might turn out to be great friends. And even if they're much younger, like my neighbor Sam, a good neighbor relationship goes both ways. They help you, and you share wisdom and friendship with them. I often think of it this way. I might not be able to climb ladders or lift heavy boxes like I used to, but I can offer years of life experience, a watchful eye on their property when they're away, and a genuine friendship in return for their help. It's a fair trade of different kinds of support. By building a network of neighbors and community members, you create a safety net right where you live. This network has something special: geographic closeness. In an urgent moment, like if you feel unwell or there's a minor emergency, having someone just next door or down the street is a blessing. They can respond faster than family miles away. And on a lighter note, knowing you have people nearby who care gives you peace of mind. It turns a street of houses into a true community. So take that first step. Wave hello, attend that block party or community meeting, or even organize a small get-together on your porch. You might be surprised at how many neighbors are also looking for connection. After all, we're all human, and we all feel better knowing someone nearby cares. The community around you can become one of the most reliable networks in your life after 60. A friendly check-in, a helping hand, or just companionship on a lazy afternoon. It's often more immediate and consistently present than even family can be. If you're finding these stories and insights helpful so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel, Glowing Age. By doing that, you're joining a growing community of kindred spirits, and you won't miss our future heartwarming stories and practical tips for thriving in your golden years. It really helps us out, and I truly appreciate it, my friend. Now let's continue on to another network that can enrich your life. 3 hobby and interest groups connecting through passions. One of the joys of getting older is finally having the time to dive into hobbies and interests that we might have set aside during our busy working years. Whether it's gardening, painting, dancing, fishing, playing music, or even learning something brand new like a foreign language, pursuing a passion not only brings personal joy, but also introduces you to a network of like-minded souls. It's amazing how quickly people bond when they share a common interest. And these bonds can turn into deep friendships and a strong support system. I experienced this firsthand when I joined a local seniors book club at the library. I'd always loved reading but rarely had time for book clubs during my career. In retirement, I spotted a small flyer at the library for a Tuesday morning book club new members welcome, age 60 plus. I still remember walking into the library's cozy meeting room that first morning, a bit nervous and not sure if I would fit in. The smell of fresh coffee greeted me, and around the table were about 10 people, men and women in their 60s and 70s, already chatting warmly. We were reading To Kill a Mockingbird that month, a book I hadn't touched since high school. The group welcomed me with smiles and a cup of coffee. As we discussed the book, the stories flowed, not just the story in the novel, but our own stories. One lady, Marge, shared how she related to the character of Scout because she, too, had grown up in the 1930s in the South facing many hardships. Another gentleman, Ravi, spoke about moving to our town from India and how reading classics helped him understand American culture when he first arrived decades ago. I found myself not just talking about the book, but laughing and connecting with these folks about life. That morning was the beginning of some wonderful friendships. Soon, our weekly book club became something I deeply looked forward to, not just for the literature, but for the camaraderie. When I had my birthday that year, guess who threw a little surprise party for me at the library? My book club friends did, with homemade cupcakes and a chorus of "Happy Birthday." It moved me to tears of joy. In just a few months, a group of strangers bonded by books became a second family to me. Shared interests have a magical way of bringing people together. When you bond over something you love, conversations flow easily. Whether it's a knitting circle where everyone is swapping yarn and stories about their grandchildren, or a fishing trip with a buddy who loves the serenity of the lake as much as you do. These are moments of genuine connection, and those moments pile up to create strong networks of support. Consider the story of my friend Alina. After retiring, she felt a bit adrift, as many of us do. She had been a teacher and loved art but hadn't painted in decades. I encouraged her to take a painting class at the local community center. She finally worked up the courage to go. Fast forward a year, and Alina's life blossomed in ways she never expected. Not only did she rediscover her talent for watercolor painting, but she also met her best friend in that class, a retired nurse named Patricia. They started carpooling to class, then having lunch together after. When Alina had a small exhibit of her paintings at a local cafe, Patricia was by her side, helping her set up and inviting others from the class to come support. And when Patricia fell and injured her ankle last summer, Alina was the one who drove her to physical therapy sessions and cooked meals for her until she healed. They often joke that the art class was just an excuse. The real masterpiece was their friendship. Hobby groups give us something to look forward to and people to share it with. It's not just about the activity. It's about the connections formed through that activity. When you join a group centered around something you enjoy, you automatically have something in common with everyone there. That breaks the ice immediately. You're not just strangers, you're teammates in a shared endeavor. I've seen quiet, shy individuals light up in a photography club when talking about their photos, or folks in a choir exchanging tissues and hugs after singing an emotional song together, because it reminded them of loved ones. These experiences create bonds that often extend beyond the hobby itself. Plus, learning and doing things in a group keeps our minds engaged and spirits high. They say that staying mentally active can even help slow down memory loss, and I believe it. When you're picking up new skills and sharing laughs along the way, you truly feel more alive. There's always something new to talk about, something to practice, and someone to encourage you when you're struggling to learn that new dance step or finish that craft project. And the encouragement goes beyond the hobby. These same friends will encourage you in life. If you mention you have a doctor's appointment, they will likely remember and ask you about it next time they see you. If you miss a meeting or class, someone will call to check if you're okay. That sense of being accountable to a group is a powerful motivator to stay active and connected, especially after 60 when it's easy to withdraw if we feel down. Have you thought about revisiting an old passion or starting a new one? It might feel intimidating to step into a class or club at our age, but trust me, it's worth it. Most people in those groups are just like you, eager to connect and share joy. And if you don't find a group, you can start one. I know a gentleman who loved chess but couldn't find any local chess clubs for seniors, so he started a casual weekly chess meetup at a coffee shop. He put up a notice on the library bulletin board. The first week, one person showed up. By the third week, there were 6 people. Now it's a regular gathering of friends who slap their chess clocks, play serious games, then laugh and chat like old pals afterward. Common interests can turn acquaintances into dear friends. Whether it's books, gardening, music, sports, or crafts, these networks of hobbyists and enthusiasts add so much fun and support to life after 60. They give us something beyond routine to savor and people to share the excitement with. In many ways, these passion-driven friendships can feel as fulfilling as family ties, sometimes even more, because every interaction is chosen and fueled by mutual enthusiasm. So dust off those old interests or dare to try something brand new. You never know, you might find not only a new skill but a new circle of friends that feel like family. 4. Volunteer and mentoring networks, the gift of giving back. There's a saying I love, in helping others you help yourself. After 60, many of us long for a renewed sense of purpose. Our careers may have ended, our kids grown up, and we might wonder, what now? One powerful answer is to give back to the community. Volunteering or mentoring is not just about doing good for others. It's also about connecting with fellow volunteers and the people you help. This network built on kindness and shared purpose can become a rock-solid support system, often as dependable as family. Let me share the story of how I found purpose through volunteering. A few years after I retired, I found myself feeling a little useless, to be honest. I no longer had a job to define my days, and I noticed I was watching too much TV and dwelling on small aches and pains. My wise wife gently suggested I find something to do with my free time, maybe something to help others. I decided to volunteer at a local elementary school, reading to kids who needed a bit of extra help. Once a week, I'd go to the school library and read with a third grader named Antonio. At first, it was just about the reading. But over months, Antonio and I developed a special bond. He'd tell me about his day, show me his drawings, and ask me a million questions about when I was a kid. I became something of a grandparent figure to him. On the last day of school, he shyly gave me a crayon-drawn picture of the two of us reading together with a big caption, "Thank you, Mr. Harold." He had even drawn a little stick figure version of me beside him. I was so surprised and moved that I nearly cried on the spot. I gave him a gentle pat on the shoulder and told him how proud I was of his progress and how much I loved the drawing. That crayon masterpiece now hangs on my refrigerator door, and I smile every time I see it. It reminds me how a small act of kindness can mean the world to someone. But that's not all. Through that volunteer program, I met other volunteers, folks around my age with hearts of gold. Every Friday after our reading sessions, a bunch of us would gather at a nearby cafe. We'd share stories of the funny things the kids said or celebrate their little improvements. Over time, those fellow volunteers became close friends of mine. We were different in many ways. Some were former professionals, others were homemakers or widows, retirees from all sorts of backgrounds, but we shared a common purpose for those few hours each week. That created a quick kinship. When one of our volunteer friends, Julia, one of the kindest souls among us, lost her husband suddenly, it was this group of volunteer pals that formed her support network. We organized a rotation to bring her meals and keep her company, since she didn't have much family nearby. We helped her navigate the paperwork and even sat with her in the church during the funeral. We realized we were simply returning the same kindness she had shown us and everyone around her, and it meant the world to her. Julia later confided that our little volunteer group had become her family when she needed it most. That's the beauty of volunteer networks. Everyone involved already has a generous spirit and a compassionate heart. Those are exactly the kind of people you want in your life, aren't they? Whether you volunteer at a hospital, a food bank, a religious charity, an animal shelter, or become a mentor for young people or fellow seniors, you will meet others who care. And caring is the foundation of reliable, meaningful relationships. Another friend of mine, George, became a mentor in a local business incubator for young entrepreneurs after he retired from his accounting career. He wasn't sure if 20-somethings would listen to a 65-year-old, but he was pleasantly surprised. Not only did they listen, they embraced him. They started calling him for advice even outside the formal mentoring sessions. One of the young men he mentored, Alan, didn't have a father figure in his life and gravitated to George. Over a couple of years, that relationship evolved beyond mentoring. Alan would help George with chores around the house, and George would share life advice and his famous barbecue recipes. George once told me with a chuckle, "I thought I was doing the teaching, but those young folks taught me new things too about technology, about seeing life with fresh eyes." When George had a minor surgery last year, guess who was waiting to drive him home and stayed at his place to make sure he was okay that first night? Alan, his mentee, now truly a family-like friend. Volunteering and mentoring allow you to step into a role where your age is an asset, not a liability. Your years of experience, your patience, your empathy, these are gold for those in need. And in the process, you end up forming bonds with fellow volunteers or with those you help. It gives you a sense of being needed and being valued, which is something we all crave throughout life. I've even read that volunteering regularly can reduce stress and improve overall health in seniors. I believe it wholeheartedly because every time I came home from helping out, I felt a little more energetic and a lot more joyful. Doing good is good for you too. Have you ever felt that warm glow after helping someone? Imagine feeling that regularly and having a circle of friends who feel it too. That's what a volunteer network can do. It connects you with others on the basis of the best of humanity, compassion. Such connections tend to be strong and heartfelt. These friends might not come over to watch the big game with you, or maybe they will, but they'll definitely show up when it counts. And because you share a mission, you often stay in touch. Many volunteers I know have been meeting up for years, long after they first started. They go out for lunches, celebrate birthdays, and look after each other. Sometimes those who give the most receive the most in return, in the form of love and friendship. This network of giving is one of the most enriching and reliable ones you can build after 60. It's built on trust, empathy, and mutual respect, much like a good family. So if you have a bit of time and a cause close to your heart, consider reaching out as a volunteer or mentor. Not only will you make a difference in someone else's life, but you'll also find your life filling up with a new extended family of kind souls. In giving to others, you just might find you've given yourself the greatest gift of all. 5 faith and support communities, nourishing the soul together. The 5th network is one that touches on the spirit. Whether you are religious or not, having a community that shares your values or experiences can be a guiding light in your later years. For many, this is a faith community, like a church, temple, or mosque congregation. For others, it might be a meditation group, a yoga class, or a support group for people who have been through similar life events, like a bereavement support group or a retirees club. The common thread is a network of people who come together out of a shared belief or experience, offering each other understanding, encouragement, and often practical help. In many cases, this kind of network can feel as steady and unwavering as family, if not more so. I grew up going to church off and on, but in my middle years I got busy and didn't attend much. After I turned 65, I started going again, drawn by a sense that I wanted something deeper in my life. I'll never forget the day my wife and I walked back into the small church down the street. Sunlight was streaming through the stained glass windows, and the choir was softly practicing in the background. It had been years since we'd been there, and we knew hardly anyone anymore, which made us a little nervous. But almost immediately, a friendly couple around our age came up to greet us with big smiles. Their names were Jim and Sandra. They welcomed us like long-lost friends. Jim joked, "Took you a while to come back home, huh?" It truly did feel a bit like coming home. Over the following months, we joined a weekly fellowship group that met every Wednesday night at the church hall, basically a potluck and chat after a short prayer. Through this group, we got to know about a dozen people closely. We shared stories about our lives, studied a few uplifting texts together, and often ended up talking about our worries and hopes. In that space, it felt safe to open up. When I mentioned one evening that I was nervous about an upcoming cataract surgery, do you know what happened? The very next morning, Sandra called me to tell me about her experience with the same surgery and to assure me it would be okay. Then on the day of the procedure, Jim actually came to the clinic to sit with my wife in the waiting room so she wouldn't be alone. Mind you, this was after knowing us only for a few months. My own brother lives across the country and couldn't be there, but here we're essentially new friends, stepping in like family. That's the kind of steadfast support faith communities can offer. People feel a calling to care for one another. There's a principle of love, compassion, and service in action. I've seen members of such communities organize meal deliveries for sick members, drive each other to appointments, and even pool money to help someone pay a bill during a tough time. And it's not just churches. I have a friend, Deborah, who attends a Buddhist meditation center. She says her meditation group became her lifeline after her husband passed. They're a small group that meets to meditate and then have tea. It might sound simple, but those tea conversations allowed Deborah to express her grief openly. One or two members of the group would check on her during the week, and one helped her find a good grief counselor. None of that was formally arranged. It was just compassionate people doing what they felt was right. Similarly, support groups for specific challenges create a bond that can feel like family. A neighbor of mine, Frank, joined a local support group for people who lost their spouses. In that group, he found people who truly understood what he was going through in a way even his kids couldn't. They would share memories of their loved ones, cry together, and also encourage each other to find meaning and joy in life again. Frank told me that some of his closest friends now are from that support group. They go on walks together, celebrate holidays together, and they lean on each other when one of them is feeling a wave of sadness. They have a pact that if any of them is ever in need or falls ill, the others will be there, no questions asked. Isn't that something truly profound? Shared faith or shared experience creates a deep connection. The reliability of this network comes from a mutual understanding and often a commitment to care rooted in the group's values. People in these communities often say they feel like one big family. In fact, in many churches, people call each other brothers and sisters. In a way, they adopt each other spiritually and emotionally. In fact, I've seen research suggesting that those who engage regularly with a spiritual community or support group tend to cope better with life's challenges and even experience less stress. It's not surprising hope and empathy are powerful medicine. In our later years, having this network can give a profound sense of peace. It assures you that, come what may illness, grief, or just the everyday ups and downs of getting older, you have a circle that will hold you up. These are people who often live by a code of caring, or who have personally walked through the fire and come back to help others through. Such friends won't abandon you when things get tough. In fact, they are often looking for ways to help. Many times I've heard an elderly person say their church friends or group friends have been there more for them than even their own kin. It's not a knock on the family, it's just that these friends share the day-to-day or the most intimate struggles, creating a very strong bond. So whether it's through faith, shared struggles, or common values, consider embracing a community for the soul. This network can be a guiding star in your life after 60, offering comfort, hope, and a sense of belonging that is steady and true. Embracing your new family of networks. We've journeyed through 5 powerful networks: friends, neighbors, hobby groups, volunteer mentor circles, and faith support communities. Each of these networks can light up your life in different ways. Maybe some of these resonate with you already, or maybe you're thinking of exploring the ones you haven't tapped into yet. The key thing I want you to take away is this: you are not alone, and you don't have to be. There's a whole world of people out there, many in the same stage of life as you, who would welcome a new friend, a helping hand, or a shared laugh. Family is wonderful and irreplaceable, but as we've discussed, our relatives might not always be around or able to give us everything we need in our day-to-day lives. That's where these other networks step in. In my own 70-plus years, I've been astonished and humbled by how much kindness and reliability I've found outside of my immediate family. Sometimes from people I never expected it from. A neighbor who barely knew me became my protector in a moment of need. A hobby group turned strangers into dear friends who even celebrated my birthday. Giving back to my community gave me a circle of support I didn't even know I needed. And finding a community for my spirit gave me peace and friends who truly get me. I sometimes reflect on what my life would be like had I not opened myself up to these connections. Honestly, I might have spent a lot more time alone and anxious. Instead, I have a phone full of contacts I can reach out to, and each one brings something precious into my life. My best friend was there holding my hand when I woke up from that surgery, instead of me facing it all by myself. My kind neighbor saved the day during that snowstorm, sparing me from risking my health shoveling alone. My book club pals turned a regular Tuesday morning into the highlight of my week and made me feel celebrated on my birthday. My volunteer circle gave me a reason to get up in the morning and the warm feeling that I'm making a difference, and they'd be the first to knock on my door if I ever needed help. And my faith group, they constantly remind me that I am never truly alone, that there's a whole community ready to lift me up when I'm down. These folks may not share my blood, but they sure do share my heart. My own children have even admitted that knowing I have such a strong support network gives them peace of mind. It makes them happy to see me happy, and when we talk or visit, they don't feel like they have to carry all my worries. We can just enjoy our time together as family, which is a blessing for us all. You might be thinking, this sounds great, but how do I start? It can feel daunting to put yourself out there. My advice: start small, but do start. Maybe call up an old friend just to say hi, or sit on the porch more often when neighbors are out and wave them over. Perhaps drop by a community center or library and see what clubs or activities are happening. If you have a computer or a smartphone, you can even look online. There are forums and local groups for everything these days. Just be safe and stick to reputable groups. Maybe this week, pick one thing, one phone call, one hello, one visit to a group, and see where it leads. Life after 60 is not a time to pull up the drawbridge and sit in solitude. It's a time when your wisdom, humor, and compassion are needed and appreciated by so many others. And you, in turn, deserve the joy and support that comes from engaging with people who care. It's never too late to make a new friend or start a new community. I often think of a quote: "A joy shared is a joy doubled, and a burden shared is a burden halved." In my younger days, I didn't quite grasp how true that was. But now I see it clearly. By sharing your joys with these new networks, you amplify happiness, your own and others. And by sharing your burdens, you lighten the load on your shoulders, and you might even lighten someone else's because they feel good helping you. These days, I sometimes chuckle at how full my social calendar has become. One week might have a Monday morning coffee with a neighbor, a Tuesday book club meeting, Wednesday lunch with my volunteer friends, Thursday evening choir practice at church, and a Friday walk in the park with an old buddy. My children joke that they need to book an appointment just to catch me at home. And you know what? I wouldn't have it any other way. All those connections warm my heart and keep me feeling truly alive. If you felt touched or inspired, consider sharing these ideas with someone else who might need a little encouragement to reach out and connect. After all, we're all walking this journey together. Stay well, stay connected, and remember, sometimes the best family is the one we build around us, one friendship at a time.